Welcome back. You're watching the Citizen Business Center. Now, Dr. Ben Chumo is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Power and Lighting Company. He was confirmed the company's CEO on the 7th of January 2014, that's having served as an acting CEO from July 2013. He joined Kenya Power in July 1986 and was previously the Chief Manager in charge of Human Resources and Administration. Just a bit of background into his education. He holds a doctorate degree in Human Resources Management, a Master's of Business Administration degree, as well as a Bachelor of Arts degree. Dr. Ben Chumo, thank you so much for joining us on the Citizen Business Center tonight. Kenyans are angry, with Kenya Power. And of course, there's been a lot of talk about the Jubilee administration's commitment or planned investments in electricity and the energy sector as a whole. We've seen some very powerful and colorful launches, so to speak, of geothermal, of the last mile connection, and we'll talk about all these things in just a moment. But just to start us off, and this is an issue that we've gotten quite a lot of comments via SMS and on Twitter as well, is the issue of power outages, and people are asking, is Kenya Power unable to deal with power outages?
Thank you, Terry. And I think it's let's simplify this discussion so that we can be able to look at what where we're going and where we've come from. If you look at or let's start with government promises in 2013. When the current government came into office in March 2013, they promised three things to Kenyans. The first thing was that Kenyans deserve to have adequate generation. At that time, we were talking about 1,600 megawatts in the country. As we speak today, we are talking about 2299 megawatts. We have had an additional 600 plus megawatts of cheaper sources to the grid as we speak today. And so that improvement is realistic, and we've seen the cost of power come down with the introduction of these regular cheaper sources. The second promise was on reliability, which is really a function of KPLC together with KETRACO. And it is very true that we have had challenges of aging infrastructure. We have had challenges of underinvestment in this particular infrastructure, particularly distribution. And of course, underinvestment in terms of, and delayed projects in terms of transmission projects, major transmission projects, major lines that are supposed to support the smaller distribution network that we have. And so, granted, we have challenges that we must admit, and I think it's good for organizations such as KPLC to come out to say, yes, we have challenges, but there are plans in place.
Tell us a little bit about those plans, because it is these things that Kenyans want to want to hear. Is something being done to ensure that the outage situation is being dealt with?
Yes, but before I get to the plans, let's just look at the immediate challenge that we are facing, particularly within Nairobi. We have had the most recent challenge that we have, and I know part of Loresho, as we speak today, may be having an outage. And it's good to be honest so that, Kenyans follow us as we move, and we make commitments that are realistic and practical without necessarily having to throw out blames at each other. We have had challenges most recently related to transformers. We have received, in the past, transformers that are not up to our standards. And some of the transformers that are in the field already are being recovered gradually. Some of them are failing so often. And what we've done to resolve that challenge is to upgrade the specifications. In fact, the new transformers have now arrived with upgraded specifications, where a transformer should be able to serve KPLC for 25 years. The first 5 years are under warranty. All our suppliers are now going to be manufacturers. So we are putting away traders who in the past have actually given us what I would consider are substandard transformers. And these are the challenges that we are facing. As we spoke the day before yesterday, we had 210 transformers out of service in the country.
210 out of service.
Out of service.
Are these part of the new ones?
No, these are the old ones that we are replacing. 110 of those transformers are in Nairobi. We received 55 yesterday, and by the end of this week we should be able to replace the entire faulty transformers in Nairobi. We expect to replace the 210 by 10th of February, and thereafter our network should be stable. that's the first and immediate action that we are taking. And so we acknowledge that we have a challenge currently, and more particularly for Nairobians or other parts. Of course, we have tried to reduce over time the challenges in other parts of the country. But for Nairobi, and I want to advise customers so that we are on the same page, if an outage lasts more than 3 hours, it is not a very ordinary outage, it's a faulty transformer. And my people would have to go down to the workshops, pick up the transformer, test it, and blah, blah, blah before they install. That's assuming it could be available. But now that particular situation is going to change, because we are receiving by 10th, we should be receiving over 585 transformers.
New
transformers. The best specifications that money can buy. And therefore, these challenges that have been facing us on transformers exploding and faulting regularly would be a thing of the past shortly. And that will address the current situation that we are having. In the immediate term, we have put aside 10 billion shillings to enhance maintenance of the existing distribution infrastructure, including the substations and the distribution lines. And so we expect to witness a reduction in outages across the country. And let's be fair to each other, there has been a reduction in outages because we monitor this. We monitor it regularly.
How big is that reduction in outages?
I would say, compared to the previous, for example, compared to 2013, we have had a reduction of close to 40% in terms of, and that really is a massive improvement in terms of sector practices, because it requires a lot of investment to be able to improve a network like ours. And so that maintenance is something that has been enhanced. We regularly manage it and report on it. The third thing that is going to be long term now is that we have, as we speak today, we have 252 projects worth 119 billion shillings, supported by local resources as well as external funding from donor community. And these projects are going to be commissioned in the next 6 years. They are in all stages of implementation. And the objective of these additional infrastructure expansion programs, or rather the specific programs, are substations and distribution lines. And what these particular projects are going to do is, besides giving us a robust distribution network, the requirement is that we want to make the network more flexible, so that we have spare capacity. For every single line, we would like to have a situation where we have 2 more, so that if one fails, if you live in Galatia, for example, and your standard line fails, we should have 2 other lines heading to that destination, so that whenever there is an outage, our system automatically switches to give you supply through another source. That is the way other developed economies operate. They are not as rigid as we are. As we speak today, and that situation is improving, if an outage occurs on a line, customers have to be interrupted. They have to wait for that line to be fixed. And as you know, if somebody is waiting for you to do something, you are not quite, you can't do a very good job because of pressure that you are suffering. And so we expect to improve our performance gradually, and we expect to have the situation come into better, or rather, our performance to be seen by our customers as having improved, perhaps by the end of this year.
All right, let's talk about the last mile project, which of course aims to facilitate affordable connection to households. 600 meters from a transformer is supposed to cost 15,000 shillings. And this actually makes the majority of the questions that have come to us tonight on 22422 and on Twitter as well. Kenyans are asking, this was launched last year. Who's telling the truth between the president and Mr. Chumo?
That's a very difficult question. Well, of course, there are no lies about this particular project. Yes, the project is a government project. What this project is going to do, Terian, is to reduce the cost. Let's just go back to a bit of background history. For a very, very long time, KPSC, over 10 years, KPSC charged customers on those customers who want to connect single-phase connections, charged 35,000 shillings. And that cost was seen to have been a bit too low for the materials that were required, for example, poles, conductor, labor, transport, etc., accessories to be able to connect a customer on single-phase basis. And 35,000 shillings was so much money for ordinary Kenyans, and that depressed the rate at which Kenyans would access power over the period of time. In fact, if other governments had done this earlier, we would not be talking about the current access that we have at the moment of 52%. It could have been done earlier. And so the cost of power has been the impediment against Kenyans accessing power. And so when this government came into power in 2013, they proposed that we reduce the cost and find ways and means of reducing it so that more Kenyans can access it. Hence the formulation of this particular project. A study was, a survey was carried out by a consultant, Fitchner, and eventually arrived at the actual cost of power, which, as I mentioned to you, is 100,000 shillings per single-phase connection. And so the government went out of its way to look for resources, cheaper loans from donor community to be able to subsidize this particular program so that more people can access to power. And the subsidy, as we speak today, stands at 85 shillings per single customer, while customers will now be paying 15,000 shillings. So the project is a phased out project. We have phase 1 now, which is funded by African Development Bank to the tune of 13.5 billion shillings. It will maximize, or we shall use 5,320 transformers that are existing already in KPSC's network. KPSC has 51,000 transformers, and its count is growing every other day. And so we are going to be using 5,320 transformers to connect customers or neighbor households around those transformers. And the cost will, the charge will be 15,000 shillings per household.
When exactly will it start? And what do you tell Kenyans who say we are within that radius? Where do we begin?
In fact, the big difference between this particular project and the previous project, Terian, is that previously our Kenyans would have, households would apply for power, and you would then have to get to their places, estimate the cost and blah blah. They may be far away from, but what the difference between this and that approach, previous approach, is that Kenyans need not apply for this. Because
so they
we
should
know
not apply.
They should not apply for this. And the reason, Terian, is that we know who are going to benefit from these 5,320 transformers. In fact, there are going to be 314,000 households who already have been identified.
Are they in a particular area or across the country?
Across the country, across the 47 counties. And 314,000 households will receive connections on single-phase basis, and it's estimated currently that for every single household there are 5.5 people. And so at the end of it, we shall have, under phase 1, we shall have 1.5 million Kenyans having access to it. And the same thing will be done for phase 2, which has been funded by the World Bank up to the tune of 15, actually phase 2 is also funded by African Development Bank to the tune of 15 billion shillings. Phase 3 is World Bank, 15 billion shillings. And so as we speak today, in that kitty we have 43.5 billion shillings. All right. And counting.
All right. Let's talk about street lighting. My director is rushing me to wrap up. I understand about 52 towns are on the rollout plan for the street lighting program. Tell us a little bit about that, as well as how you're working with the counties, because from what we understand, some of the governors are unhappy that the national government is taking over what should be a county government role, so to speak.
I think the best thing the best way to look at this particular project is that Kenyans are the net beneficiaries of this particular project. Kenyans are the net beneficiaries of this project. And really, sometimes, when you have such a national project like this, lighting up cities in the country and providing security and creating opportunities for economic activity, it really does not matter in some instances who does it. I think that's the way I look at it myself. But just to be specific on what we are doing, this project started last year in August with Nairobi. And we are told from those, of course, by government that I think the government came from some destination and established that Nairobi was very dark And following that particular expression, the government established this particular project and went ahead to request KPSC to implement the project. We have since been paid 2.3 billion shillings by central government to tackle Nairobi, Mombasa, and we are now doing Kisumu and up the north of Mombasa, Malindi, Kilifi, Kedah, Watamu, and that's what is going on as we speak today. Now we have had another. It's now been launched last week, as you saw in Mombasa, to become a national street lighting project. We have 52 towns across the country. The government has committed to sponsor to finance the project to the tune of 7.6 billion shillings. It will be completed by 1st of February 2017, and so we are moving on with the project as we speak today, and we have a schedule of implementation, and we will be sharing. What I would like to say about who should be doing what, Terry, and I've heard governors talk about this. We actually have arrangements to interact with them so that there is clear what role whether the government or countries. But government is doing this particularly. I know because I'm an insider in terms of this implementation. Government is doing this more particularly to enhance security. And
court leader Raila Odinga has raised concerns about the funding of the street lighting project in Mombasa, and of course, you know, there's still a lot of talk that the national government, or the Jubilee government to be precise, is hijacking development projects and claiming it as their own, yet they are using you know, donor funding, for instance. No, there is no, this particular in this street lighting project, no donor funding has come our way. No, not aware of it in any donor funding. This is really treasury money, as far as I know, and I have seen the process that comes through the Ministry of Energy to us. There's nothing to do with donor funding. Yes, donor funding for last mile, and this started way back. It's not anything that you know, we are talking about the other day. It's been the government has made an attempt, a deliberate attempt, to make sure that this project kicks off. All right. Yes. Where do you draw the line, though, between politics and service delivery under the mandate of Kenya Power? We are a national institution. The government owns us up to the tune of 50.1%, and so we are a service provider to Kenyans. And as you know, Terian, you know, politicians come, you know, come and go, and we are here to stay. We have been established. We were established in 1922, and we're going to be here beyond politics. I think the most important thing is, what do ordinary Kenyans get from KPSC? And I think that is the bottom line. We want to change communities, we want to light up this country, we want to chase darkness out of town. All right. And give Kenyans more opportunity to work for longer hours. As we wind up, you're getting into fiber optic as well, and internet connectivity, and I'm curious, are you getting in as a retail player? Are you getting in as a distributor? And are you already talking to any partners? We haven't established formal communication, but we are talking, of course. We've carried out some market intelligence. We have, as we speak today, just to give you some background, we have 4,000 kilometers of fiber across for our use, and of course we lease some extra to telcos. We have 8 telcos in the country. Of course, you know the biggest, Safaricom, and we think in our view, Terian, that investing in fiber is going to be some extra little amount of money on KPSC, because we are doing major infrastructure on distribution business, and so we want to lay infrastructure above our lines so that other people, other telcos can join us to use it. There is really no point in duplicating investments, you know, where you have a telco digging the trenches below you, and you have a very safe, you know, fiber above the ground, safe above lifelines. And what we are saying is that if KPSC, at KPSC we want to be the neutral provider of fiber, so that other people can come along. What we are saying, the message we are sending is that stop digging trenches, come along, and let's use this. And it's going to be the cheapest in the long run, so that, you know, we can support everybody else in the immediate term. And what we try, of course, we don't want to get involved in last mile immediately. And so we want to give opportunity to other people to do the last mile. But in the event that we find it interesting, we have 4.2 million customers as we speak today.
metered to their premises.
Yeah.
And so it will not be a lot of money for us to lay that cable to their meters and give them a service. We are also metering schools, and so that's another opportunity to take fiber to schools so that we can be able to utilize it to make sure that our people access internet across the country. And so there's a very close relationship between power and internet access. And these are opportunities that we are trying to exploit.
All right. You've talked about connectivity to primary schools, and of course, I think it was just yesterday that the Energy CS said that all primary schools must be connected by the end of this month?
30th, yes.
By the 30th of this month.
Yes.
What is the progress on that? Because we knew there were 21,000 schools, primary schools. What is the progress? How far to go?
So far, so good. In fact, as we speak today, we have less than 3,000 schools to be connected, and those number of connections will be done before 30th. And we are meeting. We have a meeting first thing in the morning tomorrow with Wasiri to discuss progress. And so we are aware of the commitment, and we are prepared to. REA and us are doing that regular connection, and we should be able to complete the schools, the 21,000 schools by 30th of this month.
All right. Yes. I'd like to revisit one or two other issues, especially the addition of redundancy, and in particular Nairobi, since it's the capital city, and there is an issue of overloading on the current power lines, and Nairobi is a city under construction. Precisely. Will Kenya Power be able to serve, a city that constantly needs about 200,000 units of houses every year? What is the plan for that growth?
If you look at our least cost power development plan up to the year 2020, we are fairly doing very well. The only challenge that we have witnessed, and this is good for Kenyans to know, is that we have major projects that have been delayed. And the source of delay in most of the cases are community problems. For example, we have a line that should have been in Nairobi from Mombasa about 4 or 5 years ago. It's just delayed here at about 100 kilometers to Nairobi. We have a line from Molkaria through Isinya, Athi River to Nairobi. That project, that particular line, which is being done by Getraco, should have been owned by now. It's delayed a bit. We expect that, particularly the Molkaria-Nairobi line, is so important to us because it will deliver. It will become another alternative, and it will give us spare capacity for the overloaded line between Olkaria and Nairobi. And so the back supply lines, which are currently being done by Getraco, are fairly delayed. But
how about Ethiopia? How does it play in?
Ethiopia is going to deliver. There's a line between Ethiopia and Kenya. It's actually coming over all the way to Suswa. Yes. And it's under construction as we speak today, and we would expect it to be commissioned somewhere maybe end of 2017, and that will be delivering generation from Ethiopia, actually hydro generation to Kenya. That's a massive, in a very short time, Naivasha is going to be, Olkaria is going to be more or less like a stock exchange for energy sector in this country. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for your thoughts this evening. We've had so many questions coming through from 22422 as well as on Twitter, and we have attempted to include them into the questions that I've asked you. Thank you so much for giving us a clarification, of course, on the last mile 15,000 shillings connection, and you're telling Kenyans not to apply and that Kenya Power will be on the ground. I'm sure they will be waiting, and we'll be back to ask us those questions or whether you did walk the talk. Thank you so much. Dr. Ben Chumo, the Managing Director of Kenya Power, who has been joining us on the Business Center tonight.
Thank you.